Hi everyone. Hi. Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. Happy Wednesday. I'm so excited to be here. As you know, I'm Justine Mangum Kirkman of Winnie Weston, and I am here with the wonderful, talented Rich from TapTapKaboom. How are you doing, Rich?
Yeah, I'm doing super good. I'm based in Amsterdam, so it's actually been a sunny day. It's one of the few days that we've had some sun. I'm doing really good, really excited for this live stream. How about you? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's sunny here too in Georgia, which it's been rainy, so I am
Oh,
happy
nice.
for the sun as well. And before we get started, I just wanted to let you guys know to remember to join into the Adobe community, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us at Adobe Live on Instagram for the latest streams, updates, and more. Okay, so we got all of that out the way. Yes, it's Wednesday already, kids. I can't believe it's Wednesday already. Oh my gosh. But Rich, definitely let us know like what you do, what you create. Show us an example of what you create, and then tell us what you'll be doing today.
All right. Let me kick things off. So you can check out most of what I do on taptapkaboom.com. So this is my website here, my portfolio page. And yeah, for the last like 2 years, I've been illustrating, creating art. I'm doing murals, I'm doing window designs, NFTs. Um, Recently, I did some framed prints. They're currently on auction, but I'll just scroll fairly quickly through my portfolio page. My stuff is very bright, very character heavy. Lots of these like happy creatures, sometimes quite dreamy, very colorful. Um, Man, I love imagination. I love stories. I love dreaming. I love inspiring other people to
Yeah.
dream, you know?
Hmm.
And so today, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be designing or beginning the design process of an all-over print hoodie. And so I've done some stuff
Ooh.
like this in the past, and I'll show you quickly what this looks like. Um, So something like this I've been doing for a couple of
Ooh.
projects of a client who should actually be launching next week. And I'm not quite sure how many of my designs are coming out in the first kind of batch, but there's a couple of these like hoodie designs that I've done. I've done some t-shirt designs. I've also done some sweater designs, this kind of
I
stuff. So
love
very,
this.
very bright, very doodly. This client is called Frankly Doodle, and yeah, we just hit it off. Like our stories are really similar. Collaborated on a number of things. I did graffiti with him. I did graffiti with other artists in a small town called Amersfoort in the Netherlands. Yeah, we did mural paintings, graffiti, a whole bunch of clothing kind of stuff. And I was like, wow, I actually want to create some of my own clothing. I want
Yeah.
this on me now. I don't like waiting. So I've had to wait like 6 months from the time I did this to when it's coming out. And I'm like, actually,
Wow.
I want to do it very soon. So I'm going to be working on something like this today. And hopefully at the end of May, it's going to drop or be available with an NFT. So you can buy or not buy, just mint a free NFT. And that NFT will give you access to buy one of my hoodies, which I'm hopefully going to do part of today. Sometimes it takes like 2, 3 hours. Sometimes it takes like 10 hours to create a hoodie. But yeah,
Wow.
that's what I'm going to be doing today.
Awesome. Well, dive on in. Oh my gosh. Number one, I love your art. I love colorful art. I love color just in general, even though I'm in black today. But
I'm
I
also in
love,
black. I'm like, I
right.
love color, but I'm black. Look,
I
black
know.
everything.
Right. I'm like, I just happen to be wearing black today and you happen to be wearing black, but we love color. It's so funny. So I'm excited to see like what you create today.
Awesome. So I've got a couple of these templates that my supplier sent me. I'm pretty sure they're from Printful, which is an online clothing supplier. Really easy to use. They have templates, they have a bunch of mockups that you can use. And yeah, there's a lot of pixels to be used here. So I'm going to open up the front Photoshop file, and at the moment it's 8,000 by 8,000 pixels with a 200 resolution. And the reason I'm going for this is because this is like the maximum limit for Adobe Fresco. So if I want to take this into Adobe Fresco, I'm just going to keep it at a size that Fresco can handle. If I make things bigger, then I can't easily shift it to Fresco. And I really like shifting it to Fresco because it's got some cool brushes, tools, techniques, and I can also sit on the couch and draw or illustrate.
Same.
So let me begin. And like the way I like beginning is just by applying, like a base color. So let me go for a new fill layer, go for a solid color. And yeah, these are like my very bright colors, my Doodleverse color library. And the Doodleverse is something like, let me see where it is here. This kind of stuff, this kind of stuff, these very happy, dreamy kind of pictures. So yeah, very, very colorful, but I love the
Yeah.
color palette that I've created here. You might be like, yeah, but that's like every color in the whole rainbow and more. But
Yeah.
that's it, right? It's just like super colorful.
I love
Um,
that. Is there a specific color that you like gravitate to? I know you gravitate to
oh,
obviously all of them, but is there one
it's
that
like,
you're like, I
yes.
have to have this in there?
So this blue, like I think it might be in all of my color palettes. So for client work, for my work, for TapTapKaboom, this blue is something that I absolutely love. And then there's also like one of these pinks. So like maybe a peach coral or one of these
Mm.
kind of pinks. And I also like this yellow. Um,
Ah,
but I also like then including black and white in almost everything because it brings up quite a bit of contrast and it plays really nicely with all the colors.
it
Um,
does.
so I'm going to start with blue as like my base. And then
Hmm.
this area over here, I think you've done some kind of clothing design, right? Your stuff's in Target,
Hmm.
is that right? Yeah.
Yes. So not clothing, but I had art prints in there and a paint by numbers. And now I currently have a notebook in Target.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank
I've
you.
never been to a Target, but I understand that it's like a big deal. So congrats.
Thank you. I know I'm like, man, in Amsterdam, like, do you got like do you have you been to a Target over in the States?
No, man, I haven't been to the States. It sounds really bad, but it's like, no, I haven't been.
No, it's okay. I'm
I
sure
mean,
you'd
right.
rather be in Amsterdam.
Oh, I don't know. It's on my list of places to go. So right now I'm just like battling to do any kind of drawing at all for some reason. It's always like, oh, there we go. Because I've got this area selected. I'm like, what's going
I
on?
know.
Like, come on. I'm live. Why can't this work? Anyway, so this area that's selected, this is like the bottom of the hoodie. So I want to
Hmm.
really try keep that a flat color. But the rest of the hoodie is like fair game. And then you'll see that there's actually some little dotted lines here that have a safe print
Oh.
area because it's different
Hmm.
sizes, right? It goes from like extra small to like 6XL. I'm not quite sure
Yes.
how big that really is, but it's pretty big.
Right.
All right, so let's try this again. Let
So
me go for,
when you create the design, you are thinking about each sizing, basically is what you're saying. Like you're not just like thinking about one size, you're thinking about how it can expand to bigger sizes.
yeah.
Okay.
And the thing is about sizing is that it's really hard to create something that will work across all sizes. So that's why one of the reasons why I'm going like overboard on the design elements here. It's because no matter what size, it's still going to look really busy, still going to look really energetic and fun and loud. And this is one of the things that I want my hoodie to say. It's like when I walk in the room or somebody wearing my hoodie walks into the room, they're gonna be like, wow, that guy just walked into the room, or like, look at that guy like running for his subway or his metro, you know? Like there's enough black clothing in the world with like a little logo or like a little something. Like there's not enough of this kind of clothing. So that's how
That's
I'm
true. No, I feel
differentiating
like
myself.
if anyone walked into a room, I would immediately know that was Rich. Like I would be like, yeah, that is
Um,
him.
So what I'm using here is this True Grit Texture Supply Scratchy Squeegee, one of my favorite things to start a piece with. And the reason I do this is just to get something on the canvas, basically. Like typically humans are really bad at starting new things. It's like, oh, what am I gonna do? Like, But when you've got something to like edit and play around with, like it makes it a whole bunch easier. Um,
Ah, that is a good piece of advice because I do know sometimes when you sit down and it's a blank sheet of paper, you're like, uh,
Yeah, what
and that's
now?
actually a question for the chat. Are you more of the person where you have to have a detailed like list of what you're wanting to create before you put something on the sheet of paper? Or are you like Rich where you're just like, you know what? Let me just throw some things on there and then see how it looks. Let us know in the chat.
Some of you might also be like, have you done any planning? Like, have you done any sketches? And I'm like, nope. Like, this is just like freestyle kind of stuff. Maybe if it was a Doodleverse piece, like,
Mm-hmm.
one of these pieces here, like I've done
Right.
some sketching beforehand. Like, that's very like intentional sketching. Whereas this, I feel, is very intuitive. And so I would say like I have a balance between two styles, like intuitive
Mm-hmm.
and then intentional.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to use this brush. It's I don't remember exactly what it is. Oh, there we go. Kyle's paint paintbox spatter Photoshop brush. I think that's a nice one.
Mm-hmm.
No, sorry, it's the wrong one. I'm going to go for this one inside my TapTapKaboom. This one. This is such a cool brush. Kyle's copier. I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Bigger, green, dark brushes. And so pump it up a little bit and go back to my Doodleverse color palette. Go select so I'll zoom in here. You can see like if I start drawing,
Oh. Mm-hmm.
like it changes like the more I like go over it.
That is nice texture.
And so if I like press hard, like it changes it a little bit. And so it kind of
Mm-hmm.
feels like I'm just like sponging it right now. And so I've used this quite a
Yes.
lot all over the show, but it is a very fun brush to use. And it works in Adobe Fresco and Photoshop. So I like it.
I
I like
love
it a
that
lot.
texture it just gives. Oh my God. It is like a very sponge-like texture.
Yeah. And like I can
Mm-hmm.
press hard and it looks pretty hard, and then I can press really soft and just keep on like working it basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it just creates this like really nice kind of texture, right? If you
Yep.
zoom in, it's literally just like a bunch of noise, but somehow when you zoom out, it looks really, really nice.
Wow. That is nice.
And if I, bump up the size a bit, yeah, just
Wade in the chat said it's the practice of mark making. Just get started and things happen. Joshua in the chat said, I tend to draw more these days with Fresco because I don't feel like I am wasting paper on a doodle anymore.
for sure, for sure.
That's true.
I, I guess it always depends on like your purpose of doodling. Um,
Right.
I have this, I guess, like a little club that I'm a part of. They've changed the format a few times, but like drinking and doodling, or pizza and doodling, it's really cool. So you go to a restaurant, you just doodle. But then when you're
What?
doodling on paper, what's really cool is that you give it to somebody because like you don't have to be precious about what you create. So if
Mm-hmm.
you like it, but you're like, well, for me anyway, I'm in Amsterdam, I'm on a bicycle, I need to cycle back somewhere, catch a train. I
True.
can't just like pop it in somewhere without, folding it. So I just give it to somebody and their expression is
Wow.
like,
Thank
whoa,
you.
thank you. And hey, like maybe in 5 years or 10 years, I'll be like a super famous artist and they'll be like, didn't we have one of those? Did you throw
I'm
it away?
telling
Is it on the
you.
fridge? What's happening?
Yes.
You know,
That is so true. So that's a club that you're a part of where you guys get together and like just drink and doodle and eat. Like, is that like an actual group of you guys?
It's like an organized meetup by two people, and roughly the same people come. Some people are new every week. Um, Once a month, there's like a talk, almost like creative mornings,
Mm-hmm.
where there's, I think yesterday was an editorial talk by somebody in Amsterdam. And then once a month, it's a doodle and drinking. So it used to just be
Wow.
beers and pizza, but they've switched the format to different types of drinking. So now the last one was tea, which is really cool.
Oh,
And the
that's
next one's
cool.
going to be wine. So it's like
Oh,
changes the format a little bit. I kind of feel
Yeah.
like your doodles need to be fancy if you go to a
Right. It's like,
wine and doodle.
okay, right. Like, okay, wine, let me do a fancy doodle. Beer, let me do a little bit of a, just go with the flow doodle. I
Yeah.
love that concept of like just creatives getting together and just creating and, I don't know, just coming together to talk and chat and eat and drink. That I love that. I need to start that over here.
Oh man, you'd be surprised like what's already started in places, but
That's
definitely if you can't
true.
find it, like create it. And it can be super low key for doodling. Like we used to have it hosted in like a cinema slash bar slash pizzeria. I think it might have also been a hotel. But like there was a kid, an 18-year-old kid who came in and her movie had started and it was all full, all the tickets were taken. So she's like, well, what else can I do here? I've just cycled for like 20 minutes. So
Wow.
she came in and doodled. And there's a whole bunch of like, double her age people there as well. And she's like, well, what can I doodle? And I'm like, hey, just here's a bunch of words, just try them. Or hey, why don't you doodle a face and I will doodle the body, and then we'll give it to somebody else after that. And so it kind of feels like you're teaching people as well, like how to be creative, how to be free, just how to
Right.
have fun and not be so like tense and caught up in creating perfect stuff the whole time.
I agree with you because I think sometimes like as artists and creatives, there can be a sense of things need to be perfect and the process should be perfect and the art should be perfect. And I a lot of times tell people like I feel like art should be free and
Yeah.
that's just what it should be in my mind. And so I love that you're teaching that you had that moment with that young woman where you were like, no, just be free with it. Just do what you want and experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels really fun. Maybe it comes with age, maybe it comes with maturity or I don't know, experience, whatever. But it feels like I've been through a process where I'm now able to do almost whatever I want to do without feeling any, I don't know what the word is, but just shame comes to mind or
Mm-hmm.
embarrassment or anything like that. Maybe it
Mm-hmm.
comes from having a kid. I don't know. Like my
That could
kid
be
asked me
it.
to do crazy things. I'm dancing in the street, singing things, running after her, all kinds of stuff.
Oh, oh my goodness. How old is she?
She's 3 years old, but yeah, sometimes it feels like she's a little bit older. We call her our three-nager.
Oh
It's
Lord.
crazy. Yeah.
Oh
How
my
about
goodness.
you? Any kids?
No kids. My husband and I got married October 2022. So
Oh,
we are just still
congrats.
in that stage of like, oh, like, maybe we'll start with the dog. Because we know when you have children, it's like your whole life just
It's forever.
it's forever.
Yeah, it's
It's
definitely
forever.
forever.
Now, what brush are you using right now?
It's the same one.
Okay.
I made it a little bit smaller, but with black, it just seems to do different things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I'm going to carry on using it until I get bored of it. So I might actually just use it for the whole time and then switch over to a couple of other True Grit brushes. Um, But right now, I'm drawing one of my favorite characters called Happy Sun.
Ooh.
And I'd love to do more with this character, maybe make like plushies in the future. But
Mm-hmm.
definitely the thing that like brightens people's days up. I have, some totes that I've made with this little character on. And most of the time he's either smiling or like smiling crazily. Um, and perhaps I'll show you one over here. Um, so I had a whole range of them.
Oh wow,
Um,
he has like a hat on and
yeah, so it's a very simple shape, right? Like just a circle who's a
right.
sun, but he has beanies and hats, and sometimes he's very fancy,
Oh,
like a Russian stacking doll.
right. That's so cute.
Yeah, so very cute, very bright again. But I like to, make him appear in my art as much as I can.
Is that
And then
like your
maybe,
signature, one of your signature designs where people see it, they kind of know that's Rich?
yeah, I think in my little corner of the world or the NFT world, that would be the case. I'd really like to make it like huge, like Hello Kitty huge, or I can't think of another brand. But you know, I'd love people to be like, ah, there's a happy sun. And I haven't really seen people draw a face like this really, or a sun like this. Maybe I'll be shocked and amazed by how many people actually draw suns like this. But yeah, it feels very much like my style. Another one is a bird. So maybe I'll switch this way quickly again. Um, zoom out.
Those are so nice.
Let's see here. It's like you'll see like a bunch of different kinds of birds here. Like this is almost like a very typical one of my birds. I've been drawing these
Mm-hmm.
things for 10, 15 years. And these are
Wow.
like more of an updated, intuitive kind of take on that. So I think I'll include
Wow.
some of them a bit later. And then another thing that I love drawing are clouds and raindrops and jewels and that kind of stuff.
I see. It's so interesting watching your process. Andrea in the chat said, I love all the different versions. Yeah, like it's interesting because you started off with like that the foundation of that one
Yeah.
color. And it's so cool to kind of see your mind just like add the layer upon layer. Um, Somebody, Teresa in the chat said, love the bombastic colors. Are you using a Cintiq?
Yes, I am. Um, when I was in university, it was one of my life goals to get a Wacom Cintiq. I was like, yes, this is it. And I teach online classes. So a lot of my classes are on Skillshare. I teach people like how to code websites, how to be creative, how to do marbling, how to animate, a bunch of different things. And during COVID, life business went very well
Mm-hmm.
because everyone was at home, you
Online.
know, online doing online courses. So there was a lot of like influx of cash into our business. I was like, I'm gonna buy one of these Wacom Cintiqs. I don't need it, but
Yes.
it's big. And like an iPad can't get bigger. And I want a big iPad, you know. So this was as close to a massive iPad as I could get. Um, it was a good day. And yeah, I use it quite a lot now. I'm still trying to figure out like the best way to use it in conjunction with cameras and iPads, and I just have too much stuff all around me. It doesn't feel like it now. It feels like, oh, Rich, you've got nothing. But I'm like, yeah, you can't see what I can see. It's a
Right,
bit of a mess
right.
here.
All we see is like this awesome background, and that's it. And you.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I'm gonna change the flow here, opacity. I'm working with a dissolve brush now. I just want to see if that changes anything. Don't think it does. Does the opacity
Someone in
change
the
anything?
comments, Ocean, commented and said, how can I join to your classes?
Yeah, if you just come to taptapkaboom.com, um, and then if you scroll to the top and go to classes here, um, there's a whole bunch. Just tap on
Oh,
it. It'll either
wow.
take you to a page with more information, um, or if you just, tap on it like this, it'll then take you to Skillshare with all the information. You might have to sign up. I'm not sure if you're a Skillshare member. Oh, there's myself talking. It's in my ears all of a sudden, like, not only when you get collages, I'm like, oh.
Right.
So yeah, have a look at my classes there. Um, I like teaching. Um, and I've been teaching longer than I've really been creating art. I've always been a
Ah.
doodler.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, about 2 years ago when the NFT scene was like really like popping off and
Yeah.
happening, I was like, oh, maybe I should try it. Some people are making some really good money. Um, I feel like I need a bit of like creative energy in my life. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, let me try this. Let me try this NFT thing. And yeah, it
Wow.
opened up my imagination, my creativity, my I don't know, like my kid side of me really came alive. It was
Mm-hmm.
it was amazing. So yeah, I loved it. It was not the best financial move like over the last 2 years. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I did make a lot of sales. I made a lot of connections. Um, and yeah, the NFT world at that time especially was like not really into art. Like they didn't quite know what good art was, or especially what doodle art was.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I opened a couple of people's minds in terms of like what's possible, like what's out there. I got people hooked on art. I even made some people cry just in terms of how I'm creating. They were just like,
Wow.
"This is just amazing. I love what you do. Like, I just see so much joy." And I'm like, "Whoa, like, cool. Like, that's really, really awesome."
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it opened up like a whole different world for me, which is really, really cool.
That's amazing. I was gonna ask you, how did you get started? I know you said you've always doodled, but um, just like, yeah, like how did you get started? So that's how you got started, essentially, I guess, in the business of art. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I went to a conference, a Web3 NFT blockchain conference, and I invited myself to, draw on a wall to do my first mural. And they were like,
Hmm.
"Cool, you're in." Um, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I had like these Posca markers. It turned out great, but it took me a long time with Posca markers. Guys, normal paint, acrylic paint is great. It does your job much quicker. Just saying. Um, but yeah, from there, I was like, wow, this is cool. I can do not just digital stuff. Digital's fun because you don't get messy and painty and stuff, but physical stuff, like you can see it, like it's big. It's not just on someone's
Yes.
phone or someone's like computer screen. Murals
Hmm.
take up space, hoodies, brighten up the room as you walk in.
Yes. Hmm.
So yeah, I got into that, and slowly I just started basically inviting myself to paint people's windows, do more murals. I got invited to another conference where I spent 3 days just like filling up a big canvas. I did an auction there, just like drawing on pieces of paper, giving them out or pasting them up in the venue. Um, it was very, very cool. And I'm still
Whoa.
doing more and more art kind of stuff. Um, but I also did take a break from, well, not really a break, but I don't want it to be my full-time money-making thing.
Mm.
I think that if that's the case, puts a lot of pressure on the artist. And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do this just to make money. So
You want
I
to
took a
still be
step.
happy with it.
Yeah, like I don't want to just
Hmm.
be like shelling out art for art's sake or money's sake,
Right,
you know.
right. That makes
So
sense. Oh,
yeah,
there's the
there's
bird.
oh yeah, I love this little bird. And for me, this, kind of less, I can't really draw people. It's just a little secret I'll tell you guys. I used to be able to back in art class, but now I'm just like, oh, it doesn't look like that person, doesn't look like I want it to look like. So I just decided not to draw too many people. I'd still like to learn again how to draw or, do some figure drawing, that kind of stuff. But yeah, this is almost like my representation of people, birds who kind of are always looking for some kind of freedom, or flying in between dreams or searching for dreams, something like that. Yeah,
Hmm. I love
definitely one
that.
of my favorite things to draw. Um, go back and for my cool brush here. Mm-mm-mm. And then back here for my colors. Oh man, this color. Oh,
And I love how you did something different with the sun. It's like you added some type of, it almost gives like a gradient look, and
yeah,
it gives me like spray painting
yeah.
almost. It like that's very cool.
I I love street art. I love spray paint. Um, it's not really been my culture growing up. I grew up in South Africa and I lived there until I was 28. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so normally skate parks and graffiti places were pretty dodgy. And I came from a non-dodgy area, like,
Mm-hmm.
upper class or whatever. Not boasting, I'm just, saying. But
Mm-hmm.
that was just it. So I didn't spend much time at skate parks or places that graffiti was done. But I always
Mm-hmm.
liked it. But in the Netherlands, it's like a different story. It's really safe here. So I've almost got into graffiti. I've done a couple of graffiti pieces or collaborations with people. Um, and I love, okay, I loved in Berlin, there was this poster or like a
Mm-hmm.
poster stand. And on this poster stand, there was just poster stuck on after poster after poster. And I don't know, maybe it was like a meter thick of just like posters on top of this pole.
Mm.
And like that kind of style of just having multiple things layered on top of each other was one, it was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
But two, like it speaks to me of how we are able to create as artists now. The fact that I'm like drawing on a Wacom Cintiq and we're on Zoom and it's getting like beamed out to YouTube and there are people commenting.
Right.
Sometimes I'm on an iPad. I'm just like, how are we doing this? Like I'm able to create like this with a technology that I have not really a big understanding of how it works. But
Mm-hmm.
then the style on top of that is just like, well, I'm referencing everything from the street art and graffiti that I see at the local skate park to the stuff that I have on my Instagram feed to other artists who are friends. And just like it's all coming in here. Now I'm
Right.
reading books with my kid and I'm like, wow, that's a cool idea. Or wow, I really like that way of drawing or illustrating something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it just feels like it's just on top, on top, on top. We're always creating on top of what's come before us.
Ah, that is a tweet right there. I feel
Yeah.
like I should write that down.
And
That
yeah,
is
so
so true.
this is like just my visual representation of
Mm-hmm.
that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your work is very, there's so many layers and layers and layers. And I see you, of course, in Photoshop, you are layering. Has there ever been a time where you just kind of got to it and you forgot to layer everything and everything was just maybe on one layer?
Yeah. I mean, I'm working in layers because it means it's flexible. But at some point, I'm like, it doesn't actually matter because I don't know where things are. Like it's like, okay, cool, that's the pink layer, that's the peach layer, and like that's the blue layer. But after
Hmm.
some point, it's just like it almost just feels like a mess or like a camo design or something like that.
Right,
Um,
right.
so then I'm like, I'll just merge it. You know, if I really need to, I can basically like put a white patch or a blue patch or something, and
Hmm.
then just draw on top of that. And if you take it into Adobe Fresco and you use some of the oil painting, which like relies on the paint that's existing on the canvas, like everything needs to be merged. I've
Hmm.
asked the team at Fresco to be like, can we do that, but have everything separated and still make use of that? They're like, yeah, that's a cool idea. And that's as far as it got, you know. But it's one of the reasons I like that.
Hmm.
And then also working with blend modes. Um, it might be one of my favorite things to work with blend modes. Like
Mm.
at this point, like I still think there's a lot of work to be done
Hmm.
on this piece. But you know, maybe if we go for a purple and change the blend mode to like an overlay.
Mm.
Um, let's see what kind of pen would be cool here. Felt pen. Hmm. Copy a pen maybe. So you might not be able to see too much of it.
Hmm.
There's just like this subtle kind of changes the
Ah,
color ever so subtly. Maybe if I
yep.
change the color again, or if I change this to lighten or screen, you know, it starts to like
Yeah,
really work out really, really nicely.
that's very cool.
So yeah, blend modes for me are super, super nice. And then when you start changing how many layers or the base layer, sometimes things go a little bit awry. So
Hmm.
merging everything into one, it really helps with that kind of stuff.
Mm.
Maybe just
Now, if,
drop that.
if someone is kind of wanting to um I don't know, they tapped into Photoshop and they're just like, I just want to see what I should do, or they're like, let me just test it out. What would be your advice for people who are kind of newly getting into, I would say, Photoshop, Fresco, all of those different Adobe products?
Yeah, I'd say like it depends on what your vibe is. So if you're a trained illustrator or a drawer, I find there's probably a better word for that. Someone who can draw,
Right.
like Photoshop might be great, but if you have an iPad and you have Fresco, like so I would say start there because there's just there's not as many tools. In Photoshop, you're like, there's just so many things, but there's nothing to do. Like where must I start? Fresco, at least you're like, okay, here's the pen, brushes, that kind of stuff. Oh,
Right.
I understand watercolor, like that's pretty cool. Um, so yeah, I would say start with Fresco if
Hmm.
you're an illustrator or a drawer, someone who does painting, if you have any kind of real world experience. If you are a photographer, I would say, start in Photoshop and
Hmm.
start editing your photos there, but maybe even Lightroom.
Yeah,
Start with Lightroom, and then if
that's
you're like,
another
oh,
good
but I
one.
I really want to, add some kind of something special, then go into Photoshop. I mean, the AI capabilities in Photoshop are also really fun. So if you're like,
Hmm.
okay, let's just have fun, just put your face in there and like make a marquee selection, like something like that, and
Hmm.
then fill it with some kind of AI generated content. It's really fun.
Yeah, that's
Um,
cool.
I remember when I was learning Photoshop, like the masking tool or the stamp tool, sorry, was
Yeah.
so fun. It was like, oh, let's put a
Yes.
bee on that guy's face. Let's put like more warts on his face, or like let's, put a beard on. That's just, it's fun. Like if you can
Yes.
find something that's fun, like that's it, man.
And just try it out. I feel like everyone, like the stamp tool, I feel like if you've taken any type of Photoshop class or graphic design class, that is like your number one, like your gateway into the software.
Yeah.
It was such a fun tool. It's such a fun tool still today.
What kind of software do you use?
So I'm an Adobe Fresco girl. I tell people all the time. I took a Photoshop class in college, and I feel like I learned, but I don't know if I necessarily retained the information per se. Um, and so for me, with what I do, doing fashion illustration, drawings, Adobe Fresco works perfectly for me because I'm able to draw and, um, I draw clothes, I draw the details of hair and makeup sometimes. And so Fresco is like that perfect software for me to use. Now there are
Yeah.
times when uh I might take it into a Photoshop just to like if I'm wanting to put my art into, a mock-up frame or something like that. But other than that, I'm a Fresco girl.
That's really
I'm a
cool.
Fresco girl. Yeah.
And so like before um Fresco came out, or have you just been illustrating since Fresco came out?
So, before Fresco came out, I think I was just drawing on paper, because I do love to paint, and as much as I do love digital, there is something about the physical of, painting and sketching, um, but I do love the digital. Um, but there
Yeah.
was this another like some app that comes with your phone at a certain point back when I had like an iPhone 5 and maybe an iPhone 8 and it was just something very simple. And so when Fresco came around, um I was really able to really tap into, okay, doing new things, trying out the different brushes that are available in Fresco, and compared to the other program that I use, that was just very like it's the type of program that if you want your niece or nephew to sit down and be quiet, you kind of give them like that type of simple drawing digital thing. But I feel like Adobe Fresco, you could do the same thing, but I feel Adobe Fresco offered so much more than that. You know, you could choose the different colors that you want to have that you might use within your brand, and you could use different brushes. There are a million brushes.
So many.
Yeah, there's so many. And so I really fell in love with Fresco because of what it offered me. And so that's what I use. I wish I were a Photoshop girl. Maybe one day I will be.
Well, yeah,
So,
I mean, I would say I'm more of an iPad creation person just
hmm
because of all the tools and how easily you can move it around.
yeah.
But to finish things off, I always finish them off in Photoshop or I export as a Photoshop file, just because
hmm
I'm like, this is like how I can, send it between different apps. I can put into Illustrator if I want. I can make it bigger. I can rename things so much quicker on
Mm.
my computer. I'm just like, okay, let's rename stuff on my tablet. I'm like, oh, this is gonna take forever. But 100 layers. Yeah, I'm like, nope, nope, nope.
And
This is gonna be a Photoshop thing.
oh yeah, for sure, for sure. That is the only thing about, it's like, okay, do I want to do an iPad today or do I want to do a desktop today? That's like the question that I ask myself. So that, I mean, that's a question I do have for the chat too. Um, are you a fresco type person? Are you a Photoshop person? Let us know in the chat. I'm so interested when I meet creative people who use Adobe products. I'm always interested in like, are you Photoshop or are you Fresco? Are you Illustrator? Like, which ones are you using? Or are you just a genius and you're using all of them?
Yeah, if you're an InDesign person,
Yeah,
respect.
in
Every time I open
design.
that, I'm like,
Yeah,
mm, mm.
right.
Like, I
Right.
mean, I got really good at it for like one project where I made a book for one of our holidays that we went on, like maybe
Oh,
8 years ago.
nice.
But then I was like, cool.
I don't, right. You're like, I don't remember what I just did. No, that happens. Oh my gosh. Oh, that
Yeah.
is so nice. And I think, like for me, when Adobe came out with Adobe Express, then I felt like, oh, well, just do everything in there.
Yeah, I haven't used Adobe Express that much. I still like it's on one of my like 75 tabs that I close and put somewhere else. It's like, well, I know my tools like Adobe Illustrator, love that. Adobe Photoshop, love that. Fresco, love that. After Effects, love that. Premiere, love that. Like, those are my things. And Audition. Like, I can't actually believe I'm saying so many apps. But my wife started out using Photoshop and then she switched to Illustrator and like she's never
Oh,
gone back. So now when she like goes into Photoshop, she's like, how do I
what?
do this? So I often catch her like bringing in photos into Illustrator and then changing the colors there. I'm like, it's pretty easy to do this in Photoshop, right?
She's like, I don't remember. I've
Don't know how to
switched
do it in
over.
Photoshop. Yeah, it's so funny.
Oh my goodness. Now is she creative as well? Clearly she is an artist of some sort.
She has a mound of talents, but she never really got into client work. So she helps me a lot and she does a lot of her own stuff. Like the one day she did 100-day projects of like one line icons.
Oh,
Um, maybe I can find it on what is this thing called? Instagram. Just find it, Studio Armstrong. Um, and her most recent thing is creating. No, that's not us. Interesting. Her most recent thing is creating audio stories for
wow.
kids.
Okay.
So there's like
Oh,
multiple voices. Yeah, I mean, this is
oh,
her
that's so
stuff here. Just
nice.
like super simple. Like she's never
Yeah.
done anything like this before. And I think this was like 7 years ago. Yeah, so she can do like stuff like this. She does all of the video editing for our online classes.
Mm.
Um, And then oftentimes we're just like, how does anyone actually like do life without knowing how to use Photoshop or Illustrator? Like how do you edit photos, or how do you like change a PDF document, or like how, like people, like I would love to know from any like non-creative, non-Adobe people, like how do they do life, without knowing how to use these
Right.
apps.
I know, that's so true. Oh, Robert in the chat said, cool work of your wife.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was very cool. I was not expecting that both you guys are just your house is full of talent. Just full of talent.
She's like, yeah, I mean, I don't know, like back in the day, like there used to be women who like didn't have a job. Um, they were like housewives or house moms or whatever you would call that. But whatever they did, they were just like really good. If they wanted to sew something, like if
Hmm.
they just sew it. If they wanted to like make something, they would just make it. And I kind of feel like that's my wife. She's like, never done a mural before. I need to do something on my daughter's wall. So yeah, I designed this in Illustrator. I'm just going to paint it on the wall. And she just does it.
Wow. Okay, so she is a jack of all trades. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Whoa. So she would sketch something or create it in Illustrator, and then how would she project it on the wall so that she could then like trace it onto the wall? Like how is she doing that? I'm so curious.
I think that she just like had the iPad or the computer there and then used pencil first and then just painted it. It wasn't a very
Oh.
complex kind of one. It's quite abstract, geometric maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then she just, yeah, just went for it. I guess the beautiful
Wow.
thing about that is that no one knows if it's right, according to the Illustrator file or not. Only my wife will know, and maybe me, but
Exactly.
now I forgot. So I think it's perfect.
Yes, I'm sure
And
it is. She does beautiful work.
anybody that comes up and sees our kids' room, they're just like, "Oh wow, like Rich, did you do that?" I'm like, "Nope, that was Chantel."
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. Okay, I see you've added another bird into the mix. Wow.
yeah. So things are starting to like take shape now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a lot of different, so like very few colors, maybe maybe 7 colors or 6 colors, but it's basically pink, black, white, and blue. There's a couple of
Mm-hmm.
different shades of pink, like really pink, like hot pink, and then peachy pink. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a bit of grit and gray in some places. And then there's, white clouds with raindrops. There's black clouds. There's black clouds with white outlines. So there's like different ways of doing the same kind of thing. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
probably just keep on doing that. I might even add a little background to this happy sun here, um, with pink, or I'll, keep on trying some things and then get into some details. Um, I don't think we actually have that long, right? How much more time do we have?
Oh, I think so we have quite a few. It's only 2:18, so I would
Oh,
say
right, right.
you hmm.
Oh,
Um so,
yeah, you go first.
mhm. So you have quite a bit of time left. If you want
Okay,
to
great.
continue working on this or if you want to start
Yeah.
something new.
No, no, this is great. I'm loving where this is going. Um, I thought that I only had 10 minutes left. I was like, oh dear. But yeah, no, we're golden. We're good.
You
Um,
are good to go.
okay, cool. So here I can bring the brush size down a little bit and start working on some details
Hmm.
and maybe parts of this illustration. There can be these birds singing or standing in clouds. Um, maybe some eyes open, sometimes they can have their eyes closed. And normally I'm quite precious about like filling stuff like exactly like again in Adobe Fresco, like you can have a reference layer and then fill another layer. But what I'm really enjoying here is making it really rough, as if I was doing this like street style on a wall with some spray paint.
Hmm.
Um, so uh, go here, just like filling this in. But if I, slightly go outside of the lines, like that's totally cool.
Yeah,
Um,
that's really cool.
it just makes it, a lot more free. And if I had the time, like I would fill or do all my fills with hand or by hand. Uh,
Mm,
for me, it just
hmm.
feels, like far more natural.
Right.
Um, like there's nothing in real life I think that you can be like, fill,
I
and it just like
wish.
matches everything, like it would be great, right?
I know. I really do wish. And it's to the point where sometimes in my mind, I'm like, I'll be in real life and I'll just like double tap and I'll be like, oh, wait, hold on. I cannot do that in real life. That's only for the iPad.
Oh man, the amount of times that I double tap like in my notebook is just crazy. Um, Guys, I want to show you like a quick little shortcut. So there's like, there's brushes and then there's over here, you've got your eraser
Mm-hmm.
over here. If you hold down your tilde key, which is like on my keyboard is next to the Z key and next to the shift key, it's like the kind of one that's, like a little wavy line.
Right.
And also like a little tick. If you hold that down, you can then erase with the same brush that you have selected. Um, so in this case, it's quite nice because instead of getting this whatever brush you have selected in your erase tool, you're like directly working with the same tool to both draw and erase. And again, in
That's
Adobe
cool.
Fresco, you've got that little button, that
Yeah.
little circle thing that you hold down to do exactly the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Which is
So
perfect, especially when you're using like a brush that has a lot of texture.
yeah,
Sometimes when you erase and the brush is like super, perfectly lined, it
yeah.
like ruins like it now looks awkward because there's a lot of texture over here and then like there's a straight line over here. So that's a really good tip.
And sometimes I'm like, how do I do this in Photoshop? Like, is there a way? And sometimes there is. It just involves another step. Um, I don't wanna, there we go. Um, and so yeah, like this kind of grit and grain that I really like using, like you can
Mm-hmm.
see it over here. Um, it's quite a nice little hack that I've figured out inside of Photoshop to use um, general brushes, this kind of like soft round kind of a brush, and
Mm-hmm.
pump up the size and then change the blend mode to dissolve, which makes it grainy. So if it's not on dissolve right,
Mm.
it's like that already. Strange. Maybe it's like that already. That looks exactly the same.
Mm. But I
Interesting.
wonder if it makes it like a little bit more grainier.
I thought it would. Well, okay, let's try. Let's try. So this is still grainy. All
Mm.
right, guys. Sometimes I just do stuff and I don't know why it works or why it doesn't work. So just excuse my ignorance. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, that's why it worked. Like in the
Right.
middle of the night.
No, that happens all the time. Like it'll click randomly in the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah. But you know what? Like one of the reasons why I love creating live is that it's like, well, if you don't know, you don't know. There's no going back. There's like you can make mistakes. Um, and that's it. Like you can't like, hold on, guys. Like, let me just figure this out for the next half an hour.
They're
Um,
like, the time is going.
yeah, it's just you can't change anything. Sorry.
No,
Um,
that's so true. I feel like going live also, um, it makes you hopefully take the pressure off of yourself and be like, oh, well, okay, well, let's roll with the punches.
I love it. Like I honestly I much prefer it. And I love having a
Same.
host. Like you're a great host. I love chatting to somebody while I'm creating too.
Yeah, I agree. And that reminds me, if you are joining the live right now, we are with Rich of Tap Tap Kaboom. He is creating a sweatshirt
Oh,
design in
hey
Photoshop.
Siri, I really don't want to speak right now. Thanks.
Was that sorry?
Siri, it's like he's coming up on my phone as well now. Just came up on my computer because I pressed something right. So I saw
Right,
this little doom, and I was like, "Oh, hey Siri, I don't want to talk right now." And then my phone's like, "Hello, can I help you?" And I'm like,
right,
"Oh,
right.
no, 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 guys, not now."
Oh my gosh. I'll never forget one time I don't know what I was doing, and someone FaceTimed or called, and when I tell you all the devices, just like
Yeah.
it just exploded. It was like my computer, my phone, my Apple Watch, my iPad. I was just like, oh my God, everybody be quiet, please.
Like, thanks, Apple. Like, do I have a call coming in right now? Like, my whole house
Right.
is like, doop, 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 doop. It's like, sheesh.
Exactly. Wade in the comments said live streams are a truly honest representation of your process if you're showing work. The they are the our version of long form math. They are a version of long form math. Yeah,
I like
that is
that.
so true. It's like you can't hide when you are drawing or creating on a live stream. It's like this is just how you are. It is a great representation or an honest representation of like your process,
Yeah.
which I actually love your process because there is something just so free flowing and just free about your process that I really, really, really enjoy. You're just kind of like you're looking at your sweatshirt design and you're just looking to see, okay, what do I want to put here? What do I want? Like it's just so free. And I love that.
Thank you. I love doing this kind of stuff. And yeah, it's really hard to explain like what goes through my mind. Um, but when I was in school, I went for one of those like aptitude career test things. Um, and my top of the list was a floor layer, tile layer, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
went to like a fancy school where you expected to be like a lawyer or like an actuary or something like that. And I was like, a floor layer, like no one's teaching me that kind of stuff here, but that doesn't sound like a very good thing to do. You know, my next one was a fashion designer, and I was like, I go to an all boys school, being a fashion designer. I don't know about that. Like, what else is there? I didn't like end up picking my top five at all, but like looking back on it, I'm like, oh, well, yeah, like this is pretty much like laying stuff out, like in a
Mm-hmm.
2D kind of space. My wife is
Mm-hmm.
amazing at three-dimensional positioning or layout and that kind of stuff. Um, but it's just, yeah, it's really interesting, like how, yeah, got it. Thanks, Photoshop. It's like, I just want the blue. There we go. It's like it's amazing to see like how things like slowly match up or
Mm-hmm.
eventually match up to like what happened in your past. Um, so yeah, like as a 17, 16-year-old kid, I was like, I don't want to be a floor layer or whatever that was. Or I remember going to, or my dad actually pointed out the other day, I was telling him about these amazing entrepreneurship and marketing books that I'm reading, and wow, it's really cool and getting into it. But I don't think I would have like been able to do that maybe even 2 years ago, just not interested in that kind of stuff. But it's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
when you were 18, we went to this college and they said that, yeah, you'd be really good at marketing. And they gave you like all of this like information and they were, really impressed by this and that. And when you got back in the car afterwards, you were like, what's marketing? It's just like this 18-year-old kid had no idea what was going on.
Right.
Just like, but now I'm like, 18 years later, like, yes, marketing is amazing. Like, we should
Right.
all be marketing our stuff. Marketing is the only way that people are going to find out about how awesome your art is or how awesome your business
Yes.
is, you know?
Mm-hmm. I love a full circle moment. That's so funny. In the chat, Alejandro asked the question, do you always generate new brushes in each project, or do you already have your favorites selected?
In this kind of a project, I have this Kyle's copier brush, which I love, and then that squeegee brush, which I normally start with, and then yeah, the True Grit texture supply. Sometimes I just pick one, and I'm like, oh yeah, that works really well. If I was more organized, and if I did this like every single day, I probably would have more color. I mean, more brushes. But my colors are pretty set, and in Adobe Fresco, I have like maybe 10 of my favorite brushes. Um, but I haven't brought them all over to here just because I don't normally create in the same way in Photoshop as I do in Fresco. Here it's more like I'll just see what happens. So
Right.
this kind of brush here is something that I would normally have in Fresco as like one of my default brushes. Um, but here I'm like, well, I could very easily change to the chiseler, whatever the chiseler
Mm-hmm.
might be, and we'll, see what that looks like. It's like, okay, cool. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
So it almost doesn't make too much of a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I could even, go for like a black here and outline this cloud.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
I could kind of be like, well, all of this are just like nibs and tech pens. But, what about a brush pen? Like, could we go for a brush pen here? Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
still like really similar. There's
Mm-hmm.
a bit of like interesting texture there.
So you're just
So
kind of like
in this
trying out
case,
different
see, there we
brushes
go. There's
anyways.
Siri again. All right, sorry about that,
Oh, no,
guys.
no, you're okay.
Um, Yeah, so in this case, like it doesn't really matter what kind of brush I use, but with this kind of style, let's go up here a little bit. Whoa, that's really close. This kind of style, like it's a very particular brush that I use every single time to
Right.
do the gradients, same brush. Like it's just like clockwork almost. I have my
Mm-hmm.
process. The only thing that's really different is my imagination. Um, And it's a really interesting process that I'm, going through right now. I don't know if you've heard about this book called The E-Myth. It's
Mm,
about
oh.
uh, entrepreneurship. It's got a terrible
Mm.
cover. Like he obviously doesn't like know any graphic designers, but like once you get past the cover, as a creative person, I'm like, I've heard this thing is good, but every time I look at the cover, I'm like, this is really old. I can't believe that this will offer me like any
Right.
good stuff, you know?
Right. Any helpful knowledge, but it's
Just
actually
like
very good.
it's so good. He talks about systems and, he references McDonald's a lot and how you can like create systems to,
Ah.
speed up the workflow and get you out the business and work on the business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all really interesting. But like now I just realized, wow, I did have some kind of a process or some kind of a system, uh, with my Doodleverse kind of style, where I
Oh,
just use the same
definitely.
set of brushes, I use the same
Mm-hmm.
set of colors, and that's my process.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely. And just so you know, you have around like, I would say 23 minutes left.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely will not be finishing this, but
It looks
let's
great
see
so
what we can
far.
do. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One thing that I really like miss about, working on a Wacom is, or the other way around, working on an iPad, I can just use my fingers to like zoom in and
Right.
zoom out. And I know you get
Mm-hmm.
some Wacoms that you can do that, but man, I miss it big time. I'm like, oh, okay, I want to rotate quickly because sometimes I draw weirdly or whatever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but then I'm like, how do I do it here? Oh yes, I can do it. It's just, one or two steps more. Um, so now I'm going to try this again. I'm going to go for my general brush, the soft
Mm-hmm.
round one, and see what happens here. Just want to give
Oh,
this a bit of a
it's like
glow.
the clouds and angel.
Yeah. See, but this one, look, like I don't know what's happening here, but this one feels very like normal, and this
Mm-hmm.
is dissolving. So there we go,
Mm.
guys. I don't know why it's working now, but it's working, okay? So yeah, it just feels like it's a gradient, but
Mm-hmm.
it feels more like, hey, it's been spray painted on,
Yeah,
which for
definitely.
me just feels a little bit nicer.
Wow. So we talk about, your process, Rich. Um, but so let's say you're about to create, what are you doing? Are you eating a snack? Are you like playing music? Like, how do you kind of get into that? I don't know, like that creative mindset. Are you listening to like podcasts or watching a show or a movie in the background? Like, what is that for you?
Um, Definitely, it depends on what I'm doing. Like a lot of the time, if I'm writing, it's something called brown noise, which is like white noise, but it's slightly different. I have
Wow.
ADHD, which then it helps me, or apparently it helps me focus. If it's drawing, I have either a Spotify playlist like Discover Weekly that I'm listening to, or
Hmm.
I have a rad playlist, and everything that just like has a big beat or clapping or just amazing song, I put it in there. And oftentimes I'm just like, let's turn this really, really loud. They're in my headphones, or I have a big studio, so I just pump it, and then I get into the zone. That is how I create. I don't know how people manage to watch stuff and draw. Um, I like to watch stuff, or I like to draw. Even like to
Right.
audiobooks. I'm like, oh, okay, that was a good part of the audiobook. And then half an hour goes by, and I'm like, yeah,
What
I
was
don't
I
know.
doing?
I do not know what's going on in the audiobook. Maybe fiction could be better. Maybe I could do fiction. I haven't tried listening to fiction and
That's a good
drawing.
point. I feel like I
But
never buy audiobooks that are fiction. So I'm kind of like you, where if I'm doing like an autobiography, I'll be so caught up in, I don't know what the podcast is talking about, or like I like, um, what's it called? The podcasts that are about like like investigations and stuff like that. I'll be
like
so
true
caught up.
crime.
Yeah, like a true crime. I'll be so caught up in it that I feel like if I'm gonna watch something or listen to something where people are talking, I'd have to have watched it before or listened to it before, where I'm kind of
Yeah.
like, I already know what's gonna happen.
And that's, yeah, it's something that I find quite strange. Like when people watch stuff or listen to stuff again, I've always been like, but don't you know what happens? Like, surely you know what happens. Like, where's the fun in that? But I've recently started watching movies again because my kid watches movies now. And I'm like,
Hmm.
I've watched this, but then I love it because I forgot like 75% of it. I'm
Yeah,
like,
no, that's so
oh,
true.
this is cool. I like this. This is great. So I'm beginning to rewatch stuff and I'm like, oh, well, cool. Like, let's watch Lord of the Rings again. Or uh,
The series.
sometimes, yeah, like there's his Dark Materials. Like, man, I could watch that again and again. Like, just love that. I don't know if you know what that is, but it is one of my favorite series. And also Brooklyn Nine-Nine with
Ah,
Jake Peralta.
uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know how people watch and draw anyway. It's
Yeah,
very
I
interesting to
would
me.
just watch it. If it was something new that was like unpredictable, I would just watch it, not
Yeah.
draw.
But then yeah, I mean, last year I got into like a bit of an M&M binging session, not the musician, like the little
Oh.
candies, M&Ms.
Hmm.
Um, so I used to like get like a big packet of M&Ms. Like, okay, just a little bowl of M&Ms. And then I would sit down and then I think like 30 seconds later, be like, where are my M&Ms gone? You know, like these things are they've disappeared. And
Gone.
I don't know, like chocolate has caffeine in, but sheesh, like I would then be hyped up and then I would go grab another bowl and then another bowl. And I just like finish the whole packet, not like intentionally, but just like almost like obsessive compulsively need to finish these things because they're so delicious.
Yes. Oh my God, they're
Um,
so good. I love
but
M&Ms.
trying to avoid them now. Yeah. It's strange.
Wow, this
Yeah.
is looking good. I love how you do like you did some black clouds, then you did the black with the white outline cloud, and then you had a white cloud with like a little thin black outline. For
Yeah.
you, what makes you go, okay, a black cloud here, a white cloud here, a white cloud with a black outline, or a black cloud with a white outline? Like, where in your mind, why do you put those certain clouds in different places?
Yeah, that's a really good question. My answer might change the next time I answer it. But I think my brain is just like, you need more pink here, or like this doesn't quite look right.
Mm,
Um, so let's try something else here.
mm-hmm,
Um, so like here, I'm like, well, there is one cloud here, but he looks a little bit lonely. Like he's a cool little angel cloud, but I
mm-hmm,
want some more clouds. Like let's add some more clouds here, please. Um, and so that's what I'm doing now, and I'll probably outline these as well.
mm-hmm.
And here I don't necessarily have to create a new layer. Um, but I'll go for like a rusty nib number 2, make it a bit bigger, maybe even make this a pink one. So it just adds more interest
Ooh.
into
Mm-hmm.
my scene or my composition, artwork,
Mm-hmm.
illustration. There's quite a lot of words you can use to describe what you're currently doing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I find it's just like really intuitive. Um, and yeah, maybe like I've never really tried this, but
Oh.
when I was a kid, like just being able to be on the phone and then doodle,
Mm-hmm.
that sounds a lot like, watching a series and doodling. But,
Yeah.
maybe I could try that, like see if that would work.
It might. I really feel like it might. Peter in the comments said, I hear, well, number one, they said they love this, which you've created, but they also said that they hear a South African accent. And you mentioned earlier that you were born in South Africa, is that correct? Or raised in South Africa?
Yeah, born in South Africa, and then I moved to Amsterdam when I was 28, 27, 28. Yeah, 28. So I've been
Wow.
in Amsterdam or the Netherlands for 8 years, and I do have a South African accent. It is not as thick or as intense as some South African accents because I came from an English town. My dad was
Mm,
from England, and I've lived here for 8 years. So when I speak English, I need to make myself quite clear. Try not to use any South African colloquialisms or slang.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, oftentimes I'm speaking to people who are using English as their second language. But yeah,
Wow.
that's me. I have a South African accent. Um, I love South Africa. But yeah, we moved because we'd lived in the same city our entire lives and wanted something different. I have a British passport. My wife has a Dutch passport. So we're like, let's go. So we sold everything, like literally everything. And I mean, we had like cars, houses, like
And you
so many
sold it
books,
all?
sold it all. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't want to have to like deal with our house back in South Africa. Sold it all. Like we made a nice profit on our house, which was enough to pay for like 3 months rent
Mm-hmm.
in Amsterdam. And then yeah, we moved to Amsterdam not knowing what life was gonna be like. Um, but yeah, it was really good.
Wow.
And so
It's
we
so
stayed.
It's I see. It's so funny like hearing like seeing your art and also hearing more about you as a person. I feel like your art is like a great representation of just like who you are to me. Like you just seem so just go with the flow, like free. You know what I mean? Like I just love, I don't know, I'm so intrigued right now. I'm like, you guys
Um,
sold everything. You weren't scared, but I mean, you
oh,
really
well, we
were.
were scared. Yeah, I mean, I think I was less scared. My wife was pretty scared. First 6 months we were quite homesick. It's like no one tells you that now. Like, 8
Yeah.
years in, we're like, yeah, this life is amazing. We have a kid here, we have a house. Like, you know, life is amazing. But yeah, when you're leaving and you're like, don't know what this is gonna be like. And your first like
Right.
trip into the supermarket or the grocery store, you're like, what is all this stuff? Where is this? I'm trying to read ingredients. We like didn't eat gluten at that stage. We didn't eat
Ah.
drink milk, and so like trying to find like what those words were in this like very European at the time culture, which were like, what do you mean you don't eat bread or gluten? Like they call everything like a broodje kaas, like it's literally bread and something. A
Oh.
broodje haring, like everything's with bread. And you're like, cool, can I have this without milk? Or like without milk and coffee is fine, but if you're like, can I have oat milk? They're like, no,
Mm-mm.
no. But now everything's a lot better. But 8 years ago, a little bit tough.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Peter
But
has another question. Oh, sorry. What were you
I
about
was
to
just
say?
gonna say, definitely like the best decision that we've ever made. It's like been challenging, it's grown us, we've made friends, like we've been able to travel a lot. Um, just yeah, it's an amazing experience. So if you're like doubting or like on the edge, like should I go, should I not? Like do it. Like if you have some kind of
Oh.
safety net, like when you're back home, like yeah, I'll just say, do it.
That is such a good point. My husband and I, we're in the DC area and we just moved down like last August to Georgia. And I felt kind of how you feel. Like, I mean, we didn't sell stuff off clearly, because it's only an 8 hour drive. But I did feel like how you felt, which is like, okay, like what supermarket do I like? Like this is just all very new, even though it's only 8 hours. It's just so, you're changing up your life. But I think we're now at the stage where we're like, well, at least for me, because he lived in Georgia before. But for
Okay.
me, I'm kind of like, okay, now I'm starting to find my groove, and so I do see why people say like give it time and then you will start to, be happy with it.
Yeah. I think you got to give yourself a chance, right? We said, let's stay here for 2 years and let's see what that's like.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really good.
Mm-hmm. And you have like around 9 more minutes, 10 more minutes left.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Um,
And you
guys, you
actually
should
have,
always save your work. I'm like
yeah, that's a good
going through
point.
here and I'd be like, oh, I didn't save.
That's a good point. You actually have one more question from Peter. He asked, you may have asked this earlier, but I like to know what Rich's influences were or are.
Yeah, I would say character design. Like if you guys have heard of something called Pictoplasma, I love it. Books, characters, conferences, anything to do with characters and Pictoplasma, absolutely love. I would still love to create my own little like vinyl toy or plushie or something like that, or do more kind of children's illustration or books. I'm getting there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then the world of graffiti, street art, maybe even a little bit of pop art. And I talked about those posters in Berlin. But the idea, like in the street art world, is like you draw something or you paint something, spray it on, and then somebody else comes and sprays something on top of that and on top of that. So I really like that. And then any kind of like children's story, man, I'm there. Like I love reading my kid children's stories. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, the imagination, like the illustration, like the colors, like sometimes even the humor in there that's directed at adults. Man, it's so good. So, blend all of those things together and you get me, my stuff.
Mm-hmm. Your influence. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All
Wow.
right.
Would you ever do like a children's book or
Yeah,
I
I
don't
would
know.
really like to. I have this story, this song that I made up for my daughter to help her sleep. It's called Hey Little Schmoodle, and it goes through uh, like basically counting sheep. And it goes something like, Hey little Schmoodle, why don't we see how many sheep it takes to fall asleep? Maybe it's one, wiggling her bum, shimmy,
Oh,
shimmy, shake, she's having so much fun. And it carries on all the way up until five, and then it's like, are you still awake? Are you still awake? Yes, you're still awake. Okay, and then goes from six all the way to 10. And 10 is like I see them sleeping in their pen. Like if you're still awake, then we can start again. And if you're not, uh, then I'll make no further peep. Good night, my little
oh,
schmoodle. Something like that. Um,
that's
but
so
yeah, so
sweet.
I sing that to her every night, and I'm like, oh, I'd really like to make that into a children's book, but yeah, my ADHD brain is like, you need to do that. But I'm like, oh, but look at this fun, shiny
I
thing over here.
know.
Like, oh, you need to do that. So at some point, I need to like set aside like a month or something to do it.
Yeah, we would all love to see that, read it, whatever it is. That is so cute. It pays to
Yeah.
have creative parents, I'm telling you.
Well, yeah, it's really interesting. Like my dad is also, I'm a creative parent for my kid, but my dad is like a financial guy, but he takes photos, photographer. Um,
Mm-hmm.
his dad was a painter and a boat builder. And then
Whoa.
my mom is a computer programmer, um, which I didn't realize like how special that was when I started to like, until I started to get into like the working world and hear about like how women are looked over, how there are no computer programmers or developers or engineers. And I was just like,
Hmm.
but my mom from South Africa is a computer engineer. Like it's
Wow.
crazy. Like we grew up with a computer in our house, like super DOS based, all, typing kind of stuff, played games on
Hmm.
there. I didn't really do much else besides play games, but just like being exposed to computers, like I guess set me up really well for,
What you
what
do,
I
yeah.
do now.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. I love that. Wow. So man, that's in the blood. It's in the bloodline of just,
Yeah.
some form of creativity. Um, because honestly, working with computers, you've got to be creative. There's got to be a level of
Oh man.
creativity there.
I often like again, like I wonder, like I like I'm the tech support for my whole family basically. If something's not working on Apple or something, even printers, they're like, "Yo, Rich, it's not working. Help me out here." My wife especially, and I'm like, "But how do other people do it?" I was gonna say mortals because I feel like a tech god at times, but it's just like how do normal people do this? Like we're trying to set up a new Gmail account and it's just not working. And I'm like, I have to like get into new browsers, I have to like erase cookies, I have to like do a whole bunch of stuff. I'm like, do people just like give up? They're like, nope, I'm just
Oh
not going
my
to create
God.
a Google account, you know?
Right. Or better yet, they just pay somebody.
Well, yeah, I'm like, well, I don't even know like who I would call to, help me with a
True.
tech problem,
True.
you know?
Especially trying to open up a Gmail. I don't know. Somebody would be like, what?
Like I get it if you're like trying to do some like really fancy stuff, but it's the really simple stuff that gets you. It's like, yeah, okay, like I just want to open up an email, like one of those email things that's been around for a
Right.
little while. Like no, I'm sorry, can't do
They're
that.
calling, they're calling you, Rich. That's just what it is. They're calling you.
And yeah, it's like when you have to start dealing with like sessions and things like that, man. But what I wanted to say was that yeah, like my kid has like two very creative parents.
Hmm.
Um, and she's got her own iPad. Oh, it's my old iPad. And so like at times, like she's on Adobe Fresco, like doing stuff. I'm like, how did you do
Yay.
that? Like I can't get this thing back to where I want it. Like, how did you get it here? Or like, how are you doing this? Like she showed me stuff, not like, hey dad, look at this. This is how you do this. Like I'm gonna teach you.
Right.
She's just doing stuff. And I'm like, whoa, like
Wow.
that's crazy, kid.
I'm
Um,
telling you, she's got it. She's got it.
So I'm like scanning all her work, and she's got her own like NFT collection from when she was
What?
one year old. So if she becomes a famous artist, and we're like, "Yo, everybody, I got like this kid's like 1 year old art. Like, check
Right.
it
Oh
out."
my gosh. You should have her like sign it at a like print something out and like have her sign it. Just, you know.
I mean, yeah, she's drawing, or she's drawing super well now. Um, but yeah, she's signing her name. She's writing dad and mom. It's just
Oh,
it's incredible. Like I was, thinking about it today. Like she's speaking to us like clear sentences,
like an
super
adult.
understandable. And I'm
Oh,
like, when did you start to do this?
right. When did this happen?
Like I can remember when you were just like, this, this,
Right.
this.
No. Yes. And
What?
now
What?
she's like full on, Dad, can
Oh,
you hand me this? Like, what? Oh my
it's
gosh.
crazy.
And since
Yeah.
we're kind of wrapping up, because you have like maybe one more minute left,
All right.
I just wanted to let people know where to find you. I know you mentioned your website, but is there anything else that where people can find you? Are you on social medias? Definitely let us know right now.
Yeah, I'm wondering how I got this thing to be black. Go be blue. There we go. Um, yeah, so let's go to my website.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm on YouTube. I used to upload quite a few like non-arty ones, more like, hey, how to be productive, how to be like
Mm-hmm.
successful kind of videos. I'm on Instagram, Twitter or X. I post quite a lot of stuff there. I'm involved in NFT slash Web3 communities. Obviously, Behance, Dribble. I used to be quite active on there too. Haven't been too active. So at the moment, Instagram and Twitter or X are my favorites. And then
Mm-hmm.
I post a newsletter every once in a while as well.
Ooh.
Don't like spamming people. Sometimes it's like every week. I'm like, guys, I have something to tell you. Other
Mm-hmm.
times I'm like, sorry, I've been busy on stuff, but this is why I've been busy. Um, yeah, um,
Cool. It's all on the website, guys. So if you, I know Wade
all
dropped
here.
the Tap Tap Kaboom website earlier in the chat, but definitely find Rich on his website where he has everything there. Thank you so much, Rich, for joining us and for creating such a masterpiece. Like I can't wait to see it like actually on a sweatshirt because it's so
Oh
nice
man.
and it's my type of vibe.
So, guys, it's not finished. Like, talking and creating is fun, but I guess maybe not as productive for me, especially when I'm showing other things. But yeah, it's not finished, but I'm loving where this is going. I'm loving the pinks and the blues and the kind of like peachy kind of colors and the grit and the grain here and there. Um, so the plan is to drop this at the end of May. If you sign up
Cool.
to my newsletter, I will let you know how to get one of these. And if you don't want an actual hoodie, you can get the NFT, which will be like a free mint. You just got to sign up or actually get it within a 24-hour period. But I'll let everybody know on the newsletter, on the socials about how that's going to
Yes.
happen.
Let us know. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Bye.
And thank you for hosting.
Of course. I love hosting. I love doing it with you, Rich. It was so much fun.
Cool. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.